Hello, and welcome back to the Elemental I Ching. So today we're drinking in GK13, hexagram 13, which in the I Ching, one of the interpretations is the fellowship of humanity, the fellowship of man, woman, of all of this human organism that we are. And also in the Jinkies, it moves from the shadow of discord to the gift of discernment, to the city of empathy. And it's the ring of purification. So we've just entered into a new Bagua section of the fire for the next 8 keys. So the fire trigram is what is cooking in our body. And I love as spring has begun to sprung here in the Pacific Northwest, and even just sun coming out again, and feeling that fire, and feeling the inner purification work is beginning to rise up into the space. So in this hexagram is the fire beneath, the fire of desire, of lightness and rapture. And the top trigram is the creative heaven, the pure yang essence, the creative essence of entropy and the shadow, the stuckness to freshness to beauty, all this time energy of revealing the beauty of life. And trusting in the deeper processes, in the melancholy, in the suffering, as the entropy as the doorway into this fresh new moment that's emerging in every present moment. And this key is all about time. 13. It's this. I love Richard's working with this key of talking about the purification of the past, of the past experiences in our relationships, and also this. When we tune into fellowship of man, like the glorious fellowship that we can be as a human family, and the highest aspects of deep empathy with one another, of people who really appreciate and love and know they are not separate from their other fellow humans, and of the natural world, that we can live in this beautiful way together. And of course matched with that shadow frequency of discord, of what are we doing? And the pain and the stagnation of, we keep, as a collective, we keep making the same mistakes. So Richard brings the issue of climate change and global warming into this key, and I really appreciated that, touching into that collective discord of, even though we know we're doing something that is causing harm to our environment and to each other, our desires are out of place, and we keep trying to satiate these external desires. And the same goes in my relationships on a very personal level. It's like, these are these unconscious desires that are trying to be satiated. And this key is all about the patience, the time, to be with our desires as they occur, but to not be victim to them, to acknowledge them. That's the power of this fire, is acknowledge that burning passion, that burning longing for change, for something better, and also the urges and the things that we want to taste and touch in this world. Those desires are passionate, intent that can flow through us. But what are we feeding with that fire? Are we making the same repeated actions with detrimental impact in our relationships, in our community, in our consumer choices as a planet? And how can we learn to harness that pathway of discernment, right? The fresh insight into this moment, to hold my desires with lightness. Maybe I want something quick and easy, but I could actually wait a little longer, and instead of rushing out to get that water bottle that's already packaged in plastic because I need something to drink, and instead I can wait and get my nice glass reusable bottle and go to the filter that I really trust and fill it in that way, and prepare next time on my road trip to make sure that I have my water bottle filled. I bring something so simple like that because it's important to make those tiny little choices. Those tiny little choices of choosing to respond to the fresh moment of what my needs, my wants, my desires are, and to use that fire in its highest light without re-wounding these patterns. Because it's all about digesting our past. I just had a really deep, profound healing with a dear friend of mine, who was holding a really long burden in their soul, and just to feel that weight that burden was that they were carrying from this, unable to digest the past in a true way. And this is where I love the power of listening. This key is all about the magical medicinal qualities of listening to one another, right? The fellowship, to come back into that sacred community, that sangha, that congregation of like-minded souls who can listen to one another and let the purity of life purify us, instead of trying to fix and contort and control the external circumstances, which is usually us reacting to our desires. I don't like this sensation, so I need to do something now to fix the sensation. Even medication and medicine, right? It brings us back to our center so that we can heal at the root. So that we can heal at the root of where these desires, where this fire has been out of control. So here the heaven is bringing us to awareness of time, of freshness, and of knowing that it takes time to digest the minerals of our experiences. Sometimes these wounds, they take so long and so much gentle, non-agenda, just letting them unfurl. And one of my teachers in the Dzogchen tradition, he talks about Vajrasattva Dorje Sempa as the Buddha of purification. And he said this beautiful quote to me of it's not about purifying. That purification is a byproduct of knowing you are pure, of being in that primordial purity of who we really are, that true nature. And purification naturally happens the more that we come back to our center. And so it doesn't have to be this heavy thing all the time to digest all that minerals of our past, of our remorse, of our regret, of our woundedness, of that discord, of our pessimism. The pessimism just feeds on its own self. That cynical nature just feeds on its own self because that's what it thinks food is. And I'm just opening my vessel to actually digest these minerals of these experiences, to digest these memories, digest my relationships, and allow each moment to teach me to come back home into center, no matter how challenging it gets. That's my aspiration. That's my work in this world. And I read this beautiful quote from the Essential I Ching about fellowship, about this hexagram, that if you can find even a single iota of a learning inside relationships, instead of just blaming the other person, right? If you can find even the smallest insight about yourself through a relationship, then no matter what its duration was, that relationship was a success. How much do we put on our worth and our value around relationships? Like, oh, it's just been so hard with this person for so long. But how much have we learned from those really intense relationships, that friction of the sandpaper alchemical relationships? Even our enemies, even people we're at challenge with. If we can really take that fire inside and discover a true insight about ourselves, including a healthy divine no. And that's what discernment can include, is we have the opportunity in this life to feel all of the sensations of what's going on, and the discernment, that purifying light of wisdom, to maintain that sovereign connection to you and your body, and what is really the body intelligence informing me next to the most correct decision I can make in this reality. Because I can't fix everyone, I can't heal others, I don't have the control on what someone else is going through. I have control, authority over what is my response to this situation, and can I choose that brilliant light of awareness to make a fresh, loving decision and hold things a little lighter, right? And just know that all of these lessons are lessons of play as much as they are of challenge. Just these last few days, I've been crushed energetically, just feeling the discord, but overwhelmed, just like completely obliterated emotionally. And there's some maybe external reasons, but I've learned at this stage it's not so much about those surface stories as much as I'm just feeling, And then I do some qigong and I get up and I start my work, and there's this balance of going through those purifications. I call them my Phoenix Cave times. I just burn, and I let all my worries burn through my body, and I let all my fears just burn through the system. And balance that with the discerning wisdom. Okay, now it's time to get up, move my body, put some good minerals, some good tea into my body, recenter, use the medicine, right, to bring back to center, to discover how I can be, a loving, fresh, and aware, awake being now. And that's why we need to digest the karmic past. But it's not about settling all that debt. Sometimes a person leaves this planet, maybe they die, or maybe they're just not open to those conversations. You can't settle that personality debt, but you can purify those unnecessary cords by returning to that sovereign center. That's what I'm looking to do, and what I'm exploring. And sovereignty doesn't mean separateness and aloneness. It doesn't mean being isolated from the world. We are in an interdependent field. For me, sovereignty means to be at ease without compromising my values, to discover and forge the truth through my experiences, through relationships to teach me. There's another great quote from the Tao of nature nurtures unity while honoring diversity. Every one of these individuated cells of who we are as this human organism are different parts of the personality spectrum. And if I can use all of my relationships as mirrors for my own psyche and bring those parts of myself back home into balance within my own being, then I've learned deeper inside, I've gotten a closer glimpse at that true nature, that integrated wholeness of who I am. And I won't be as victimized to the reactive tendencies of that desire body that want to get out of whatever stagnation, discord, pessimism, cynicism I'm feeling. Lightness is a real, that fire, right? This fire that's emerging over these keys. We're going to talk a lot about lightness. We're going to talk a lot about the burning desires and how those sublimation of that can be a creative passion, and how it can be, how longing is not something that's bad. It's one of the most glorious parts of the organ of the heart is that longing. That I would go to the ends of the earth for my lover. I would slay the dragon for the princess. You'll do so much for others. The power of service, to arise into service for the fellowship, to really be connected in those relationships. So as the sun has been moving through this key, I've noticed how it's calling me back into the fellowship, been in some good isolated bear time, amidst other service, but a lot of yin, and it's been important for me to rejuvenate in that way. And the fellowship and this entering of the fire is calling me a little bit more out, and to listen and interact with my communities and with people, with the fellowship again. To let us purify through our heart presence, through sharing heart presence. And let's release and unwind some of these old burdens that we've been carrying. They have great genetic code, they have great information for us. We can honor, we don't bypass the depth of our pain, my pain. I'm not trying to invalidate anyone else's pain. I'm not trying to invalidate struggle and sorrow. And I want to learn to digest that deeper and deeper in my body, and discerning when it's time to step away. If a situation is not of benefit for either of us, then the most beneficial, loving thing I can do is take my step back, put my hand to my heart, and honor each of us on our journey, and discover how I can rest back into that sovereign, loving heart. So empathy, the city here, this beauty of the rapture, the beautiful rapture of empathy, is this dissolution of the self that where sympathy is feeling with someone, empathy is feeling from inside someone. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes, like really becoming a compassionate connection to another. And a lot of the mystical and esoteric and different cultural waves right now, I hear a lot from my friends and myself and other beings about I'm an empath, and there's been this weird kind of bypass thing that I've just noticed over the years of as that excusing someone from facing what they're feeling. And I say that humbly because I do this all the time, and I think it's really important in circles, especially in shamanic circles, of like, I don't want to take on someone else's stuff. And for me, in my own life, what I see is that anytime there's that energetic disturbance happening in the field, and I am charged about it, then there's something in it for me, you know, and those little gremlins don't have anything to hold on to if I don't have charge about it. But if I have charge about it, those little gremlins, they show me where I'm not loving myself completely, where I'm not at ease in my body. And so they're here for my liberation. And so my invitation to my own empathic nature is to be mindful of where, you know, being too sensitive and actually enabling that sensitivity can be a detriment to being able to walk with ease through situations, because we don't always have the perfect container bubble for exactly how we feel safe. And so there is this purifying fire that is really here to say, how can I learn to digest all the sensations of my life? How can I feed it to that cauldron of the fire in my belly? You know, and that's what I'm gonna work with in these next 8 keys, is really igniting the fire in my belly and using that longing and using that purification and using that powerful rapturous quality and the pain and suffering that comes with burning away the old layers of that are no longer beneficial to who I am, and igniting this glorious cauldron that will be able to maintain a steady, sustainable, loving vibration through the peaks and valleys of experience. And instead of giving in to the poisons of that desire aversion of I want it to feel like this and I don't want it to feel like this, but coming into this equanimous holding and honoring of the fire, Grandfather Fire, you can take my prayers, my highest prayers, and offer them up to the world. And you can take my deepest lead, my most disgusting humanity, and I can put that in there to become the living gold of who I really am, right? So just honoring the process of both the highest things that we can offer to the fire and the deepest lead of our own lower desires and constrictions and pessimism and cynicism and discord. And instead of getting lost in the discord of, well, how could we ever overcome this many lifetimes, generations, millennia of, you know, pain and of idiocracy and just not making healthy decisions for the body, for each other? Why are we still at war? Why are we still pillaging the planet? Why are we still, you know, making these mistakes? Why am I still making these mistakes in my life? And how can I utilize that energy instead of collapsing into the entropy of that energy and desiring to escape that feeling of closed downness? And also not blasting out so far that I'm not grounded, you know? How can I balance this discernment of balancing and being guided to the right steps that I can choose in my life to be a role model of that, to be a living in my ideals, living in my values right now, and to inspire that spark, that fire we see on all the movies and Rebel Alliance and the revolutions, and you know, that spark that lights the fire that can ignite the soul during the darkest time of you know, of war and of famine and of disease. You know, we have to. There's such a call for me to ignite, to be a protector of that fire of our human passion to be alive, and to do that in the highest harmony instead of burning itself out. And that survival, consumerist, greedy monster, desire monster of that fire. The fire can get out of control, but fire is also a necessary component to the destruction, reconstruction of life, and it will warm us in these dark times. So I say it a lot these days, but I think it's good just to feel that fire of hope of like, I'm still here for humanity, for the fellowship. You know, to gather around that sacred fire again and to learn the stories again and to learn each other, to see each other completely, you know, and to know that your pain is my pain and your joy is my joy, and the only way I'll ever be happy and free is if all beings are happy and free, you know, and not as a obligation but as a glorious coming together, you know, and coming to meet within that beautiful fellowship. Nature nurtures this unity while honoring our diversity. So I'm going to keep walking my very unique path and carry my flaming brand of my style out into the world. And I hope that you all do the same and that we get to meet each other, even when we don't always agree. You know, even if you completely disagree with the words that I use, or I hope that we can meet and listen. You know, really listen to each other's hearts, and listen to what we need as a human family, and listen to what we need in our communities. Yeah, let's reclaim that art of listening.